Hello children, we will now get acquainted with the new paper pattern and some hints about how to write the papers in algebra and geometry. You are aware that you are now going to write a paper according to the new pattern. In this pattern, the total marks of the paper have been reduced to 40, but the scope of the syllabus remains the same. Therefore, for every mark, you will have to write a little more as compared to what it was in the earlier paper, which means that you will have to write the rules, the explanations, then show the steps, and whatever relevant theorem or principle in mathematics you are using, that will have to be stated. So, in algebra and geometry now, we will see by taking a sample question in each question, how to write these answers and what to keep in mind while writing the papers. Right, so here we go. Paper 1 and 2, mathematics. Paper 1 is algebra. Paper 2 is geometry. Algebra. The board paper, as I said earlier, is of 40 marks now. And MCQ'S and the internal assessment marks are 10, which are with the school. So you will be assessed at the school level for these 10 marks. Included to 40 marks board paper, the total for the subject algebra becomes 50. Similarly, the total for geometry becomes 50, and thus algebra and geometry together cater for 100 marks. Algebra. Question 1. You will solve any 5 questions out of the 6 given questions. Each sub-question carries 1 mark, and therefore the total marks for this question are 5. Question 1. 1 mark. Write the quadratic equation in the standard form n minus 7 upon n equal to 4. Now, on the face of it, this doesn't look like a quadratic equation because the highest degree of the variable is not 2. But you will notice there is a denominator n which will have to be removed. It can be done in 2 ways. Either we take the LCM or we multiply each term by the common LCM. If we do that and multiply both sides by n, we'll get n square minus 7 is equal to 4n. Bring 4n to the left hand side and you will get the equation n square minus 4n minus 7 is equal to 0. And this is the quadratic equation in the standard form ax square plus bx plus c, which you are quite aware of. Another question that is likely to appear in this question is state whether the terms are in AP and justify. And the terms given to you are minus 10, minus 13, minus 16 and minus 19. Now here, first give numbers to these terms, that is T1, T2, T3 and T4. And you will have to show that the difference between T2 and T1 is the same as T3 and T2 is the same as T4 and T3. Try it for all the 4 given numbers and then say, since the common difference between the successive numbers is same, the given sequence is an AP. This is your justification. So then only you'll deserve 1 full mark. Let's go to question 2. You have to solve any 4 questions out of 6. Each question carries 2 marks. Thus, this question in all carries 8 marks. One of the questions that may appear in this question is 3 coins are tossed simultaneously. Find the probability of getting at least 2 heads. Now 3 coins tossed simultaneously is the same thing as tossing 1 coin 3 times. And at least 2 heads means minimum 2 heads. This therefore includes the favorable outcome of 3 heads, that is HHH, that should be included. Getting at the most 2 tails means maximum 2 tails. Maximum 2 tails means 1 tail or 0 tail. Both are included. Therefore, 1 tail is HHT or HTH or THH, and no tail means HHH. That is also a favorable outcome. We'll go to question number 3. You have to solve any 3 out of 5. Each sub-question carries 3 marks, and therefore total marks are 9. Here you will be dealing with questions in statistics. Let's take one such question. The table shows frequency distribution of waiting time at an ATM center. We have to draw a histogram. Now for histogram, remember the bars that we write must be joined, and therefore the class limits must be continuous. If they are not continuous, we'll have to make them continuous and take the classes in the true class form. Here the classes are already continuous. Another thing, if the lower limit of the first class is 0, that means the bars are going to be attached to y-axis, as is the case here. But if the first class starts at some other number except 0, then you will need a crink mark. Frequencies should be so considered for taking the scale that the histogram covers at least 60 to 70% part of the graph paper. If you take such a scale that the histogram bars are too small or too large, it doesn't look nice, and it shows that probably you haven't given much consideration to the aspect of scale. So take such a scale which will cover at least 10 to 12 centimeters from bottom to the top. You will notice here that there are 6 classes, and therefore if you take the class width as 1 centimeter on the x-axis, then the histogram will cover just about 6 centimeters. But if you take the class widths for 2 centimeters for each class, then for 6 classes you will cover 12 centimeters, and then the histogram will look good. So decide if the classes are small in number, do show each class by 2 centimeters width. Don't forget to write your scales on x and y axis. If you feel that x axis can be lifted slightly couple of centimeters above the baseline, it's okay. Also see if the y axis can be taken couple of centimeters on the right hand side from the extreme left margin. You will have to write what you have shown on the x axis. In this case, it will be time in seconds. On the y-axis, you will have to write number of customers by an arrow which points upwards. Once you have done that, try and give some heading for this histogram. In this case, you could write that a histogram showing time taken by customers at an ATM center. Now, your histogram is complete and you deserve all 3 marks. Another question that may appear in this question is finding the mean by direct method. Now, there are 3 methods for finding the mean, as you are aware: direct method, assumed mean method, and step deviation method. If the method is not mentioned in the question paper, you are at liberty to use any which method you want. But keep in mind that if you decide to use the step deviation method, or it is mentioned in the question paper that you should solve this question by step deviation method, then in the formula for step deviation, there is a term H which stands for the class width. That means the classes must be true classes and the class limits must be continuous. If they are not, make them continuous and then use the step deviation method. For direct and assume mean method, even if the classes are not continuous, do not spend time in making them continuous because it doesn't make any difference in the final answer. Class width is not really necessary. Question 4. Here you will be solving any 2 questions out of the given 3. Each question carries 4 marks. Therefore, this question carries total 8 marks. Some sample questions that may appear in this question 4. Solve the quadratic equation by completing the square. Now here, first we will have to take the given constant minus 2 to the right hand side so that the question becomes 6m square plus m is equal to 2. Now we have to find a constant term for this equation on the left hand side so that it becomes a complete square. Now here the square term m square has got a coefficient 6. That must not be there. So it should be removed. Therefore, you will have to divide both sides of this equation by 6 and you will land into m square plus m upon 6 is equal to 2 upon 6, that is 1 upon 3. Now you will have to use the formula for finding the constant term on the left hand side, which is half into coefficient of x whole bracket square, and proceed after that. Important point is, don't forget to remove the coefficient of the square term. Another question that may appear in this question 4 is, solve simultaneously these 2 given equations. Now here it is advisable to use a substitution for 1 upon x minus 2 and not merely for x minus 2, because the first term can be written as 27 into 1 upon x minus 2 and the second term plus 31 into 1 upon y plus 3. If you assume a letter, say a for 1 upon x minus 2 and b for 1 upon y plus 3, then the equation becomes 27a plus 31b is equal to 85, and the second equation becomes 31a plus 27b is equal to 89. You would have noticed that the coefficients of a and b have interchanged, and therefore the best method to use for such questions is the method of addition and subtraction. In this way you will be able to get 2 simple equations, a plus b and a minus b. Don't forget to restore the value of a and b at the end of your solution. Question 5, you have to solve 2 sub-questions out of 3. Each question carries 5 marks. Therefore, question 5 carries 10 marks. Now this question is likely to take little more time for solution. Therefore, you should have sufficient time up your sleeve when you start solving question 5. Solving question 5 in last 15 minutes is not desirable. So, keep little more time for question 5 by solving your earlier questions in time. I have taken a sample question for question 5 marks. A bus covers a certain distance with uniform speed. If the speed is increased by 15 kilometers, it takes less time, and if the speed is decreased by 5 kilometers per hour, it takes some time more. to complete the same journey. We have to find the distance covered by the bus. Now here they have told us that the speed is increased and the time decreases, but initial speed and time is not given to us, which we will have to assume. Therefore, you should start by writing, let the initial speed of the bus be x kilometers per hour and let it take y hours to reach its destination. And therefore, the total distance covered by the bus becomes x into y, that is xy. Now whether the bus increases its speed or it decreases its speed, whether it takes more time or less time, the distance covered remains the same. Therefore, when you write the two equations according to given conditions, in both equations, your right hand side should be the distance covered. At the end, when you get the values of x and y, don't forget to multiply x and y to get the total distance covered by the bus, which is xy. Now children, let us see what is the pattern of the geometry paper and how the marks are distributed. Geometry paper is now of 40 marks. Earlier paper was 60 marks, but the scope of the syllabus has remained same. That means you will be required to write little more for every mark. MCQs and internal assessment carries 10 marks. These marks are given to you at your school level as per your performance throughout the year. Thus the total paper becomes 50 marks. Combined with 50 marks of algebra, mathematics has now become a paper of 100 marks in all. There will be 5 questions in geometry paper. Question 1 will have 6 sub-questions, out of which you will have to solve any 5. Each question carries 1 mark. I have taken a sample question. Sub-question 1. Triangle ABC, B', that is point D lies between B and C. BD is 7, DC is 5. We have to find area triangle ABD is to area triangle ADC. This ratio we have to find. Now you will notice that both triangles have the same vertex A. In such cases, the heights of both triangles ABD and ADC happen to be same. Therefore, we should use the property that if two triangles have the same, that is common vertex, and if their bases are collinear, then their heights are equal. So when we take a ratio of area triangle ABD is to area triangle ADC, it becomes base upon base because height gets cancelled, and therefore the ratio will be BD is to DC, that is 7 is to 5. These explanations must appear in your answer. Question 2. We have to solve 4 sub-questions out of 6, each sub-question carrying 2 marks. So total marks for question 2 are 8. First sub-question from question 2. Radius of a base of a circular cone is 3 centimeters and its height is 4 centimeters. Find the curved surface area and total surface area. We should know all the formulae for finding the surface areas and volumes of geometrical figures. Now remember, if you want to find the curved surface area, you need the slant height. Here vertical height and radius have been given to you. Therefore, using Pythagoras theorem, you will have to find slant height and use that in your formula, which is curved surface area of a cone is pi r L, where L is slant height. And then add to it the area of the circular base so that you get the total surface area. Another question that may appear here is, if -2, -3 is a point on line 2y is equal to mx plus 5, find m, that is the slope of the line. What must be mentioned here is, if a point lies on a line, then its x and y coordinates must satisfy the equation of the line. Therefore, substituting x is equal to -2 and y is equal to -3, you will get an equation in which x and y variables will not appear and you will get the value of m. This is the slope of the line. In question 3, you have to solve any 3 sub-questions out of 5. Each sub-question carries 3 marks, therefore total question marks 9. I have taken a sample question for question 3, which carries 3 marks. You'll see a triangle, a scalene triangle, DE parallel BC. DE is 4, BC is 8 centimeters. Area triangle ADE 25 centimeters square. We have to find area of triangle ABC. Now you will have to first show that triangle ADE and triangle ABC are similar triangles so that you can easily find the ratio of their areas, because we know that the ratio of the areas of similar triangles is equal to the ratio of the squares of the corresponding sides. It is easy to show the two triangles are similar. You will notice that angle ADE and angle ABC are congruent because DE parallel BC, which is a given data, and AB happens to be the transversal. Therefore, these two angles are corresponding angles and angle A is a common angle. Therefore, two triangles are similar by AA test, and therefore area triangle ADE upon area triangle ABC will be DE square upon BC square, that is 4 square upon 8 square. Area of triangle AD is given, so you can easily find area of triangle ABC. You must show all the steps so that you will get full 3 marks for this question. Question 4. Solve any 2 out of given 3. Each question carries 4 marks. Therefore, total marks are 8. A person standing on the bank of a river observes that the angle of elevation of the top of the tree is 60 degrees. When he moves back 40 meters, the angle of elevation reduces to 30 degrees. We have to find the height of the tree and the width of the river. In such questions in trigonometry, if you draw a correct figure, then your half the question is solved. So, if you show a river by a certain segment, a tree on one side and the observer on the other side, draw proper figures, draw right angle triangles, and show the distance between two observation points to be 40 meters. You will notice that you will get 2 right angle triangles, and in both of them the height of the tree becomes a common side. Remember, we assume that the tree is exactly vertical to the ground. Therefore, from both triangles, if you take the ratios of tan 30 and tan 60, you will be able to write the expressions for the height of the tree. Equate the two expressions, you will get the height of the tree as well as the width of the river. Show all the data that is given to you in your figure so that you will quickly remember how to approach this question. Drawing a correct figure is very important in such figures. Let's move to the next question. Question 5. we have to solve any 2 out of 3 given questions. Each question carries 5 marks. Total marks for question 5 is 10. Now the questions at question 5 need little more time. Therefore, you should plan your time such that you have sufficient time to tackle sub-questions of question 5. I have taken a sample question here. This question is from the chapter of constructions. Two triangles AMT and AHE are similar. Now when you read these names, you will see that letter A is common to both triangles. That means these are not two separate triangles. They are not disjoint triangles. One triangle probably is inside the other triangle, and therefore you should draw a rough figure. Write the measurements of various segments given to you, and if the ratio is MA upon HA is 7 upon 5, which shows that MA is the larger side and HA is the smaller side. MA belongs to triangle AMT, HA belongs to triangle AHE. So obviously triangle AMT is a larger triangle, triangle AHE is a smaller triangle. Draw a truthful figure as per the data, and you will be able to show that the sides of the two triangles are in the ratio 7:5. For that, you know the technique of drawing a line, making a certain angle below the baseline, and then dividing the line in the ratio 7:5. Finally, don't forget to write your answer at the base of the construction that triangle AHE is the required triangle. This question, children, was in nutshell the nature of the questions that you might face in your board paper. Right. So children, you have studied hard throughout the year. You now know what is the new pattern of papers in algebra and geometry. You know the various rules, theorems and properties of geometrical figures. So practice solving question papers and plan your time. I'm sure with this preparation you will do very well. I wish you all the very best.